All right, so it's time to start talking about the final project because your final project proposal is due this coming Monday. But before you can make that proposal, you need to understand what the final project is. And I want to make it very clear. I will be checking and comparing everything you do from this point forward against what you've done with the final project proposal, then with the list of preliminary sources, then with the annotated bibliography, and then with the final project itself. So once you've committed to your final project proposal this week, you're married to it. If you want to change it, you need to email me and get my permission first, because otherwise I'm counting on you working with this final project concept. All right. This final project is something that I do for all of my classes. The format's the same, and I'm making this recording for both my US 1 class and my 2 Civ 1 classes. We're going to be looking at the final project instructions for the US 1 class, but everything is foundationally the same except the dates. So, starting with that in mind, the first thing that you have to do is look at your newsfeed. Now, if you remember, in the syllabi, regardless of which class you're in, under the things that you have to have for the course, the textbooks and the readings, you also had to have a newsfeed. And that newsfeed, as I mentioned in the day 1 syllabus video and in class itself, is something that is on your phone, it's on your computer, it's on any tablet you have. It's just a little icon for an app that brings together all of the current information about what's going on in the world from a variety of different sources, both written and video. For this course, it needs to be written. So you're going to go to that news feed, and if you, for some reason, don't have this icon on your phone, I know it comes on all Apple phones. It's kind of impossible to miss. I also know it comes on most Android phones. But if you don't use it or you don't have it or you've deleted it or whatever, you can also go to Google, and if you click on the Google tab, it's going to give you a news option as well. And it's basically going to bring together different sources of what's going on in the world today. But for your final proposal and for your final project, you're going to need to have some information on whatever the topic is that you pick. And it needs to be something that's actually relevant in the world today. Because what you're going to be doing, regardless of whether you're in US 1, US 2, Civ 1, Civ 2, is tracing the origins and development of that issue through the time period the course covers. If you're in US 1, that's going to be from the 1500s to 1877. If you're in Civ 1, that's going to be prehistory up to the 1500s, the modern world. If you're in any of the other classes, it is the time period covered by that course. All right. For your final project proposal, you need at least 2 sources from that newsfeed in the modern day talking about that issue. All right. So you need to get on top of that now because this final project proposal is due on Monday. I'll show you what it is in a minute, but right now I want to go through the actual final project itself so that you can see basically what you're going to be doing. You will either, for your final project, be writing a paper, doing a video, or doing some other form of creativity, a podcast, whatever. It's got to be something that will allow you, though, to use internal citations. It cannot be a PowerPoint by itself. If you choose to do a video presentation, you may use a PowerPoint in it, in which your voiceover or your presentation is giving much more information than just what's in the PowerPoint itself. So a PowerPoint alone is not an option. All right. In week 7, you're going to be giving me your list of preliminary sources. And what this effectively is a list of the 3 primary sources, 2 of which are from at least 2 different centuries prior to the end year of the course. If you're in Civ 1, that's going to be two different sources from either the ancient civilizations, classical civilizations, post-classical civilizations, one from any two of those. They can't be from the same time period. And then you're going to have one primary source from today, obviously. You will also need 6 secondary sources, not counting your textbook, or if you're in US 1, the Lepore, or if you're in Civ 1, not counting Frankopan and Harari. So you may use those books, and I encourage you to do so. But the 6 sources secondary sources that must be in your list cannot include those. So you need to start doing some research on that now. In week 10, you're going to give me an annotated bibliography in which you take your 3 primary sources and your 6 secondary sources, and you analyze them. And the annotated bibliography has the instructions on what you're looking for in each one of those, whether you're looking at a primary source and how to analyze it, whether you're looking at a secondary source and how to analyze it. And we'll go through that more closely as we get closer to time. Your annotated bibliography, however, is worth 15% of your final grade. So you really want to be on top of that by the time we get to that in week 10. All right, the final project itself is due in week 14. Regardless of whatever form it takes, whether you're doing a video, a podcast, a paper, whatever you're doing, you have to have your internal citation within that. I have to be able to see where you get the information from your sources. The final project should trace the history of this issue or problem from the time period in which our course begins through and up to the end point of our course. Again, if you're in US 1, it's going to be something that's going to trace the history from the 1400s to the 1870s. If you're in Civ 1, it's going to trace the history from the ancient society or even prehistorical period up through the 1500s. And then it'll skip so that you cover some of the issue of what's going on with it today. All right. It should include accounts of the impact on previous societies through quotes from primary sources, as well as at least one account of how it impacts us today. And that may come today from a secondary or a primary source, but definitely for the stuff from the past, you've got to at least have 2 accounts from 2 different time periods of how it impacted the people then. How have previous generations viewed this problem? This would be your historiography part. When did this issue become something known to the general public? Why was nothing done about it in the past, or was something done, but it wasn't enough? Who historically has benefited from either the problem or the response to it, and why? How do we view the history of this problem or issue today, and why? What can be done about it today? Are we doing something about it? If not, why not? If so, how so? All right, so this is what your issue is. This is what you're going to be doing with whatever your issue is. You're going to be analyzing it historically and into the present. This is the grading rubric for the final project itself, which you may look through at your leisure, but do notice that it's broken down based on all of the different component parts, all of the different questions, and also on the issue of sourcing. All right, so what do you have to do this week? Well, this week you have your final project proposal due. Hold on just a second and I will pull it up. All right, so this is your final project proposal, and this is what is due this coming Monday. Having spent several weeks reading different sources about current world issues, which you should have been doing, consider the most serious issues of the world today. Then choose one that you think is the most serious. Identify the source and cite 2 sources that you have read about it. And those 2 sources are going to be 2 things out of your news feed. Why do you think this is most serious? Are there others that are equally concerning, as in are there other issues equally concerning? Why is this the one that you chose? And when I say be sure to cite 2 sources, what I mean is you need to list 2 different sources, written sources from your newsfeed that discuss this, because you're going to be using them to justify why you think this is the most serious question, or one of the most serious. For question 2, what sort of project do you want to do? Will this be a paper, a multimedia project, or something else? Why do you want to do this? And more importantly, why should I let you? So basically what you're doing is you're defending your choice and explaining to me why I should let you do this. Will you be working alone or working in a group? Now, the constraints on working in a group are outlined in the final project itself, but basically, a group can be no more than 3 people. The 3 of you have to agree on whatever this issue is and justify it collectively. If you do a paper, it's 10 pages per person. As in, if you and one person want to do it, your paper needs to be 20 pages long. If you and 2 other people want to do it, your paper needs to be 30 pages long. And that's text. That doesn't count the works cited or any other paraphernalia around it. That's literally the text part. If you are working alone and you want to do a video, it needs to be about 5 minutes. If you take on a partner, then it needs to be 10 minutes. If you take on a third person, it needs to be 15 minutes. The same applies with podcasts. So the more people working, the more expectation there is, right? So if you're working alone, you're just answering this for yourself. If 3 of you are working together, all 3 of you need to submit this, especially the part about where you'll be working alone and who else will be in it. And then the 4th question, what do you hope to achieve or learn or prove about this project and this topic? So bear in mind. So what you're doing for me for Monday is you are writing me basically a proposal for what you want to do your research on, what form you want to put the research in, and what you hope to learn about it and about the project itself. All right. So as I said, that's all due on Monday. I encourage you to reread and read thoroughly the final project guidelines themselves before you sit down and start working on the final project. The list of preliminary sources and the annotated bibliography are due again in week 7 and week 10 respectively, which means you'll be doing research on this from this point out. But for right now, you need to come up with an idea about whatever it is that you think is a big issue that you want to cover and that you want to do research on. If you are in US 1, it can be something about the United States itself, modern issues with policy, or with issues having to do with AI or technology or climate change or disease or any of the various things that we've got going on right now that have everybody concerned. If you are in the World Civ course, it can be about any of those as well, even though it can't really be just about U.S. politics. It needs to be about world politics or world issues or bigger things that you can trace back through the history of the Civ course, which again covers a wide diversity of areas, civilizations, peoples, etc. So, all right. So consider this. Start thinking about it. And I will be open to questions on it between now and Monday. But definitely you want to be thinking about this and have it all ready to go so that you have some idea of what you're doing come the deadline over this weekend. And you can turn it in earlier than Monday, of course, but I will not be looking at them until after the deadline on Monday. So if you have questions, let me know.